The common council meeting for February 19, 2013. Please rise for invitation.
Bow heads. Gracious God, we thank you for this day. We thank you, God, how you continue to bless us and keep us. We thank you, God, for waking us up this morning. We thank you for giving us another day. Dear God, we ask you to continue to bless this meeting, bless everyone that's present. Bless all of our council persons. Be with them and strengthen them. Give them the courage they need to do their jobs and to do what they need to do to help our community to be better. God bless all of our staff and other persons that work with our mayor and to continue to help us to serve our community and do the work that it takes. Be with our mayor, be with him by his side, give him what he needs to cover him. God will continue to bless us as a community. Help us to know that we're only as strong as our weakest link. So Lord, help us to all know we have to work together. We also ask you, Lord, to pray for our first responders. Be with them and strengthen them, continue to watch over them. We thank you, God, for the job they do, how they protect us and they watch over our community. Continue to be with them and continue to keep them covered on each side, continue to protect them from hurt, harm, and danger. This prayer we ask in the name of the Lord and Savior Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to God and the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Councilperson Smith. Councilperson Zastavny.
Here.
Councilperson Gill. Here. Councilperson Glover.
Here.
Council President Sellers. Here. Council Vice President Julius.
Here.
Councilperson Owen.
Here.
Councilperson Samuel.
Here.
Let the record show that Councilperson Payne is absent. There are 8 council members present. Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Minutes to be approved. Make a motion to approve the common council minutes of January 22nd, 2013.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the common council minutes of January 22nd, 2013. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Claims. Good evening. In your packets are the claims for the parks for $74,168.74. I recently spoke with Councilperson Sassani, and I would like to move under from parks the charges for Colbert Harkins and Visa and Don Meredith and NC Prince that are all related to Vissing Park, and the really centered over to the non-reverting fund for Vissing Park construction. They're all capital expenditures, and these need to be charged to the full fund. I regrettably don't have the exact dollar amount. I can get that corrected to Ms. Conlon, but the items are $570, $2413.75, $2,115, $25.89, $89.76, and $97.50. All of those would be paid under the general claims out of Fund 239.
Is that just for accounting purposes?
Yeah, it's for accounting purposes. I'll have to make the corrections as far as the totals for the record, but I can get those to Ms. Conlon tomorrow. I don't have my calculator here, and I just can't add that many.
We'll let you sign this time.
Okay.
I make a motion to pass with changes.
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the parks claims in the amount of $74,168.74, with some of those items being moved to the Parks non-reverting fund. It's not Parks non-reverting, it's the Vissing Park non-reverting. It's under the general. Okay, Vissing Park non-reverting. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next in your packet was general claims in a total amount of $1,496,005.75, subject to the additions that we just spoke of. I also want to remove from this claim and move it to Fund 239, a charge for $16,000 that was related to early design. It was charged to edit. And then also, there are two charges for electric and water that were charged. It's listed in the building authority, and they should be both public works relating to City Hall utilities. Those are incorrectly posted, and making those corrections. The total amount will only increase by the amount we removed from parks.
So the $16,000 out of edit is going back to the
Non-reverting.
Vissing Park non-reverting?
Yes.
Now, any claims that we have that would really change to this building, whether or not, and it's not a big dollar amount, but it's just like for a chair rail for the conference room, that really should come from the building authority.
And
taking out the mayor's budget, but really, it's physical work being done in this building, and it should go through the authority and come from their budget.
yeah, and we could do that. I think possibly the mayor was because it was an elective thing that he was paying for out of his
Well,
budget.
that's fine, but I'm just saying it shouldn't come out of his budget, it should come out of...
I agree 100%. That was supposed to come out of the building.
Anything like that, or painting, or anything that has to do with the building, that's a small item, but it still should be something that we need to have.
All right. Other than those comments, or is there any other questions?
Like I had one on the roads,
Okay.
the Clark County, the 911.
Yes.
Two questions. One, is that the total 2013 funding? Once we do this, are we done for 13?
I submitted an invoice. I asked them to clarify for what year it was, and they gave me 2013 and did not specify that it was a partial payment or anything on the invoice. All I did was get a notice that I was going to get an invoice and just submit for the claim.
Okay, my second, you may have just answered it, but my second question is, you know how we came up with that amount? I think that was a shortfall from the county.
I'm sorry?
I thought that was a shortfall from the county. They sent us a bill for...
I didn't get any explanation. I just got a communication from the attorneys, all I got, and that they had spoken to Ms. Sellers in regards to please process that payment. So that was our share with the percentages.
So it's not the total shortfall, we're not paying another... No, our portion.
Right.
After making this payment, are we done for 2013? Or
I believe that was...
I thought we were too...
Do you know what that percentage was, so I can make a note of that?
It was originally, I don't have it written, I got all the paperwork, I thought it was 37, but maybe 39%.
Was it based on our late distributions? Was that what it was based on? Okay.
When you say our shortfall, are you talking about, this is our shortfall contribution for the PSAP, or is this for just the operating? We pay into that. Okay. I'm at 40%, I would assume. And, but I was just... We was given a breakdown. I remember one meeting when Jeff was here, and they had an actual budget, and they showed the shortfall. The county absorbed it all in 2012. But in 2013, they showed the shortfall, and our percentage was $300-something thousand, and it's broke down in all the municipalities, I guess, right now.
I still have that.
I don't have it with me.
Well, mine's up in my office, but I can scan it into my email to you all. So because I have some birth, part of it? This is the first time we've received a bill, and if it's being distributed based on the Lloyd distribution, that's a certified share done by the state, and so that would be a fair percentage.
I would just ask you, is this our 2013 responsibility?
Okay.
I would just like to
You
know.
want to know that there is no further obligation for the year
Or
2000?
if there is, what it is.
Okay, I can do that.
Thank you.
I remember when Joe came before, but that was almost a year ago. It was at least 9 months ago.
It was 12, sometime in 12.
Right, it was early.
Anyway, all our documentation's ready. The budget, everything's all, filed early.
Any motion?
I make motion to pass. Second.
I have a motion and a second to pass, general claims in the amount of $1,396,005.75 with utilities. All the changes, just let me say that. All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carries. The last set of claims in your packet were TIF claims for the amount of $477,486.50. If there are no questions, respectfully request approval.
Have these been approved by redevelopment?
This is pre-approval, the redevelopment meeting is tomorrow. If you don't pre-approve these, it will be another, they've already been waiting a month, so I'm asking for pre-approval.
I make that motion to approve them prior to redevelopment.
I'll second. I have a motion, a second, to pre-approve the TIF claims in the amount of $477,486.50. Are there any other questions, comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Also, last meeting, it was asked if there was a policy or an ordinance. Ms. Conlon confirmed there was no ordinance relating to the gas cards. There is no written policy. I am currently working to draft up one and consult with the other department heads on how to implement that, and would keep you informed as to my progress on that. But there should be a policy on that. And part of the problem is that we also issue gas cards out to other municipal units that use the fuel card, so we also have to take into consideration their procedures on how to handle those issuances as well. So, if there's anything else, thank you. Mayor, do you have any comments? You should.
Evening, everybody. I want to pass on some good news. I had a nice visit today up at Mr. P's Trucking with Cindy and Rochelle. They are in the midst of doing a $7.3 million expansion up there. It was great news for them when Amazon landed. They certainly benefited from the domino effect, but there's some other things going out there as well that they're in anticipation of possibly having some more growth. So another good shot in the arm for us out there, but $7.3 million into our local economy carries a lot of weight. Had a nice statue unveiling today, the intersection of Mahan and A Street there, the little park. The Jeff High School students have were commissioned to build a little statue that involved the welding class, the art students from Don Struck, several businesses in the city. And we dedicated that today. It's got a theme of baseballs right there, back away from the Little League Park. So if you get a chance, you may want to go by there and take a look at that. And I understand there was some questions about the flood control. So I'm here tonight. If you've got some questions, I've got Josh Yeoman from Chicago Trees and Lands. I've got Mike Lamb here as our flood control director. So you've got some questions. I'd like to have them right now.
Well, on the agenda, so we'll get to it when we kind of
Connie, I'm here right now. I've been told you all been waiting for me to come. I wasn't made aware by anybody. You were asking for me. I'm here right now. If you've got questions,
Well, we just have a couple of department head reports before you, and then do the first one on the list.
I'm here right now.
Well, Josh, that's me. He's been here before. He's my neighbor. Don't wait for that long to get home. Anyway, please, let us get the department head reports and then we'll get to you.
We're here now.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Kelly, Reed, and Doreen, Rutherford.
Karen wasn't able to make it tonight, but I just came in case you all have any more questions.
I've got one. I think it was, I'm stretching my memory here.
Okay.
Didn't you tell me Kokomo?
Yes.
I searched all over Kokomo, and I could not
Those
find.
is not as easy to find as Austin's or Chesapeake Bay's. Those are much easier. I mean, Chesapeake Bay's is on their homepage. And I think, didn't Dylan send you all some links to the different sites?
The only thing that I wanted to say personally, I do quite a bit of traveling through business and so forth. I never go to a city's, I might go to tourism or Chamber of Commerce or something else to find out what's going on the weekend that I'm there or what have you. I never go to the city's website.
I understand that. It wasn't our intention to gear it toward people that were traveling. That was a comment Rob Stevens had made that he thought it would be helpful for that. Our intention was really for residents to use it. So,
I wish I could have found it on Kokomo because I bet I spent 30 minutes wandering around their website.
you have to go to like the economic development page, and then it's under like businesses, and it's listed under there. So
I just couldn't find it because I wanted to search around on it and see what they had and so forth. So.
What kind of commitment is this? Or what kind of commitment are you looking for?
a year-long commitment.
A year long?
Yes.
Because it gives a price, but it gives a price for the first year, and I wasn't sure what would come after that.
And that was, they had said that after a year, the monthly fee does increase. Obviously, the setup fee is a one-time cost, and then the monthly fee would increase, and I believe the average increase is like 3 to 4%.
Okay. Is this something that Janice has been giving any input on, or?
Yes, he has. He looked into it, and he thought it was a good idea. I mean, let's see, I discussed it with him the day after the council meeting, I guess. I discussed it with him before, but then we talked about it after the council meeting, too.
Or in depth?
You know if Main Street would be willing to pay part of this?
I didn't ask them,
Probably not.
but I would guess not. They have a
Main Street
tight
doesn't have-
budget.
yeah, I was gonna say
I mean, they
that.
come to UEC for most of their money, so.
No, we're going to do that.
If they like it, they need to participate.
I think if we were to ask them, then we'd also have to ask 10th Street and, you know,
Every business association.
right.
Do you know, it talks about with the monthly price and the setup fee, it talks about how much space you're getting for the app or the website or whatnot.
Right.
Do you know, is that going to be sufficient, or is it something we're going to need to expand on?
They said that they've never had anybody in this space, including Austin, Texas is the biggest city that uses it, and Austin doesn't have a problem with the amount of space.
With the additional amount of space?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, as I look at this, how is it different than the website we have now? Can't the website now go mobile? Can't you see it on your iPhone? I mean,
You can do it on your iPhone.
What's the value added in doing that?
It's more user-friendly for the iPhone. I mean, it's more like an app than a website on the phone. It has the ability to do like alerts and like send out coupons to people, kind of like a Groupon type thing, and then they would contact all the businesses and
More interactive.
and they have an ability to set up a microsite, which our site currently doesn't allow.
Does this have, I'm trying to remember, I did look through it, does this have the push notification option where we can push a message out to residents who use this app?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know about push notifications. I believe the way the notifications work is through email, like if they opt in to receive coupons or daily updates or something like that. Or if they go to like the alerts page and then it would show them different, or just the home screen for the main app, we have the option to show alerts on there.
I just remember we looked at something before where we were going to have the option if there was something come up and we needed to put things out to the public, but that was one of the functions of that we looked at before.
Yeah, I mean, that is helpful. Although I never turn mine on because they eat your battery up, but...
Any other questions? Thank you. Chief Hubley? Yeah, Chris Green.
Chris Green.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chris.
No, he's...
I'm sorry.
It's too late now.
I didn't see it was right.
The agenda now, that's me.
It was oversight, did not do that on purpose.
Just got some good news, 1914. But I want to make this real brief. I know that you guys always have some lengthy meetings. I've been in communications with you guys via email, through text and some other things, through phone messages. We're really at the fire department in need of 4 vehicles, realizing the challenges of the general budget, the uncertainties of the general budget, realizing that's not possible. I'd like to request the purchase of 2 vehicles at this time. The purchase of the vehicles, we're going to make some moves to try to help with the purchase. We have a $5,000 check from Utica. I think we received that, right? From the sale of an older fire apparatus. We're going to reuse the same radios that we have now, so that's going to save. They're rather expensive. And also, we're going to trade in, one of the vehicles we're trading in is really a really older vehicle that's out of service, but we're going to trade another one in to try to get that value. We can get 2 vehicles for just about $60,000, maybe even a little bit less. I wanted to ask the council to consider that. We really need, like I said, the 2 vehicles to kind of get us started on our purchase plan of replacement vehicles, and then revisit this next year and see where we're at. One thing on the price point on the vehicles, I do have a representative from Coral Chevrolet here, Mike Jacobs. If you guys had any questions, the government bidding will be back out, and it is expected with a new model coming out next year and different things to go up $3,000 to $4,000, he said. So just, if we were to buy them now, I think if we would be late to later in the year, I think we will be paying a little bit more for those vehicles, possibly $3,000 to $4,000 more. The government price was very competitive in 2013. So.
Well, Eric, you gave us a lot of good information. We put mileage on there. But my concern looking at public safety, what is the shape of car 5 is? That vehicle gets used, you can't go by miles on that one because that goes to every structure fire, every car fire. Basically, car 5 responds to everything. And that vehicle sits and runs for the whole duration of the...
No, Lisa, that's a great point. Sometimes you look at the mileage and you compare mileage to the cars, and Chief Smith can certainly attest to that. These cars are driven a little differently than they're driven from your car or your neighbor's car. It's a stop and go with braking and then just on the emergency run. So when you look at the mileage on the cars, mileage is not really, like one of the cars we need to replace is one that's got, is one of the Impalas that's got 52,000 miles. And you say, my goodness, that car is not a very dependable vehicle. It's in the shop, sees Bubby a lot. So miles are not always the best tell of the vehicle in our circumstances.
Car 5 sit there and run with lights flashing the whole duration of the road scene.
No, that's a good example. Car 5 runs on...
What year is that?
Car 5 is a 06.
Are you looking at replacing that one?
We're looking at replacing that one next year. It comes with so many extras in it and things. It's rather expensive to replace with all the different slide-out trays, and we want to try to go to a different instead of going to a Suburban in that, it's got so much stuff on the inside of it. If in an accident right now, I don't feel good in that Suburban. All those things in the back, be it air tanks, heat detectors, mask, tools, all that stuff becomes projectiles if you get into a wreck. And we're trying to resolve that with our next purchase of a Car 5. I know you guys used to have a different setup years ago, but maybe something to think about is what we're...
It says 4 vehicles and...
He told me truck.
So the price that you're looking for, $60,000, is that minus the $5,000 from Utica?
No, that is actually, 60,000 is the net. The price of the vehicle is about 35,000. That is the car plus the light package plus the reinstall and console for the radio.
What kind of cars are here?
Those are Chevy Silverados trucks. They have a copper on the back. I'm sorry?
Oh, that's 1,500.
Yes, should be 5 tons.
Does that include the trade-in?
Yes.
I guess what we need is the final cost that you need from us, the 2 vehicles.
It's 60,000.
To avoid that projectile he's talking about in the SUV. The projectile with all the equipment that they'll keep in the back.
Then in the general fund. The $5,000 went in the general fund, so I guess it's not really there for our disposal until it gets appropriated from the council, correct? So it's there, but it really doesn't, it's not in my budget, so.
Johnny, got a motion in a second
There's a
here.
motion on the second on the floor for the...
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the motion, because we were talking.
What are the 2 vehicles you're replacing?
It's an 01 Crown Vic, and then the Chevy Impala,
Okay.
06.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions or comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Chief Graham.
No, she's not.
Yes, I am.
But I hope you all live I'm here to ask you, mine's fairly easy. Last year when we did the budget approvals, our levy money was set aside for vehicles, and that's why I'm here today. We ordered 4, which we had approval last year, 4 this year. Actually, I just talked to Mike Jacobs from Coyle. They should be here. Should be here in the next couple of weeks. But we were budgeted for 10 cars, so I just need approval to order the other 6, and that levy money was approved in the road budget this year, so I just need approval of the other 6.
You've got talking about going through Carl. Are these bid, state bid?
They are state bid, and actually Coyle BC state bid. Because if you look at the packages that we get,
I mean,
they're
state bid, police packages?
Yes.
And Carl's are police packages as well?
Yes. Yeah, Chevy makes 2 different police packages. They make a patrol vehicle, and it's how the console and running yourself. They make a patrol vehicle and a detective version. We buy the police by patrol, so it's got it all.
During the workshop, we gave you the go. How did you really for?
4. And my budget was, I think, 325 for vehicles this year, and I can probably, I'm squeeze 10 out of that. It's $27,900 for the vehicle and about between $4,000 and $5,000 for equipment per car. So right around $31,900, $32,900.
So $33,000 per vehicle, give or take.
That's very, that's on a very high side, would be 33.
Or replacement.
Yeah, I'm sure y'all seen the white ones out back. Those are all of our older higher mileage vehicles, and those are actually being decommissioned and sold. So.
Michael, once they were sold, where does that money then go?
Goes back to the fund from which it came.
Okay. So it goes back into the same fund?
No, goes to
And these funds are brought in general fund money, the older ones.
edit money.
Yeah, whatever. So they would credit the fund, and that's required.
So it will go back to the edit fund, so we'll be able to track that on our report. Not that's a lot of money.
How are they sold? How do you do it? Yes, they put them on web deals. Or we'll do public auction. We've got some of the RMO vehicles we're going to sell too that are actually ours. So we're trying to, for some reason they've stockpiled cars for years, and we're trying to we're trying to window those down to where
the city's not paying for those. I was going to say, like, the insurance and setting up where we tore the buildings down. Those are all back here now. I know, but what about our insurance? I mean, they're not covered. Okay. They've been taken off of insurance. Some of the ones that were up there were actually scrap vehicles that Bubby cut for parts if they were needed. Well, we're switching cars now, so, and, they don't make the Crown Vics anymore, so he may keep a few of them just for parts cars, but everything else we're going to try to get rid of. But that was probably not our insurance. Right, yeah, they're not, there was no reason to keep them insured, so.
So Chief, are you asking that you want to go ahead and spend the remaining $300 to do it as otherwise you can?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha, okay. And we are approving the 320, yeah.
Oh, so make a motion to approve for the 6 cars.
Second.
I have a motion second to approve the 6 vehicles for the police department coming from Lloyd. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Just a second, real quick, just so you know, there may be more than 6 purchases. You're going to spend all of the 321. Right. And you're going to buy as many as you can.
I'm going to buy as many as I can get out of that.
Make them up with 9.
I'm making up with 9. At the most will be 10. I'm going to try to squeeze it out.
I don't want to small for that. Who said buy 10? We're going to buy 6. So could you put in there just to get to his concern, could you just put in there, approve 321 out of Lloyd, and then let him work with that dollar amount?
So we want to try 6
And then he can-
cars or something.
And we ordered 4, so you'll probably see that claim in the next month and a half when those cars get here. So I'm ordering 6 more.
We can do like you did before, and just send me out, let us know how many was ordered, and if they ordered.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have a motion second to approve the police chief to purchase the police cars, as many as he can get for $325. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Okay, unfinished business, Mr. Lau. Flood control.
Oh, that's the management.
I guess you got that.
Just this resolution number 2012 R28, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Jeffersonville approving the issuance of bonds by the Jeffersonville-Sarksville Flood Control District. And I know that Mr. Lamb, Mr. Coleman, and Mr. Crouch are here if you have any questions for this.
Well, really, we need to talk to the man, because the whole point was we wanted to know why he voted against it, maybe they
I don't know.
Did he leave?
Don't ask me. I don't know. I didn't realize he wasn't still here until just... The whole point of having an agenda
Is to follow the agenda.
is to follow the agenda. And we've asked him to do what before. It's not a big deal. And it's fine if he's in a hurry. We didn't amend the agenda at the beginning. That's the amount of times I hate to move stuff around to accommodate.
Well, he's known about this for, let's see, that's since February 7th.
Well, he's first on the agenda.
Yeah, when he's first on the agenda. So,
He's not out there. I make a motion to table. The president,
I have a motion to table.
Since the flood control district hasn't got their report back, right? Correct.
Right.
Yeah, it's,
I have a motion and a second to table.
supposed to get back February 20th, I'm
I
sorry.
have a motion and a second to table. All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Sorry, Josh. Mr. Lau, an ordinance establishing, I thought we were going to send this back to the planning commission. Ordinance establishing fee in lieu of required sidewalk ordinance. I thought that was something
I think it just got tabled and the planning commission.
we've not met yet, so we need to meet, so really this shouldn't be on here.
Would it might?
Motion to table.
Yeah, so can we remove it until the planning commission has a chance to look at it, and actually Shane needs to look at it?
Motion in a second.
Yeah.
Shane's aware of it, he and I,
Okay,
Shane's aware of it, he and I spoke after the last meeting.
okay. I have a motion second to table. All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed? Ms. Harmon?
About 3 minutes ago.
Are you still ahead? I'm sorry, I digress. The salary ordinance for 2013 is being amended. This was previously discussed. There are no changes at this time, and unless there's any further questions.
Motion to pass on second, third reading.
Okay, I have a motion, second. Sorry. I have a motion second to pass on second, third reading. Any questions or comments? I have one. Speak for myself. Does this have to do with the farmer? Is that in here? That was changed at the end of,
Last year.
last year, part of the budget.
Right.
Okay, so that's the other list.
This is just the switching of the engineer from sewage to, what else? Yes.
Yes, and changing the utility, the things that were made, changes after the budget, the ordinance was read at the end of the budget process. They were done after that.
This is just switching the two employees from the balance.
Right.
This is what we add, can I find it also?
We added the kennel attendant, we added the utility worker and wastewater, and then we're flip-flopping two positions. All the other changes are exactly as it was passed. Attachment, thank you. Yes. I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 2013-02 on the second, third readings. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. New business, Mr. Zastrovny.
This resolution goes back to our last meeting where it didn't get put on the agenda. We were talking about if the redevelopment needed to amend the plans in order to do 50-year $1 leases. I think we came to the conclusion that yes, it needed to happen. So my question is, I'm not sure if we need to move forward with this resolution or not. I know some on the council not to move forward with the vote. I think our legal counsel says we didn't think it was really necessary since there's one agreement.
Yeah, I mean, it's still at your discretion. I know that it changed when I was asked to prepare this for the last meeting. It was not on the agenda. There was the question was doing more whether you've already thought they could move forward with at least this since then. I think it's, still just a work that it's important that they can honor. Just want to acknowledge that they do have to follow the procedures outlined in this resolution as far as amending the plan, going before the plan commission first, and then coming back to the city council. So I think there is an acknowledgement for Mr. Workman from redevelopment that they do have to follow that procedure. So I mean, legally, I don't think this is necessary at this time. It's your discretion.
Based on that, I'm not going to push for this resolution to be passed. If someone on the council wants to, that's fine, but with that, I'm just going to finish my words on it. I'm glad that the administration agrees that we need to go through the process and make the changes that are necessary. That's all I got.
So, Scott, do we need to make any kind of motion to remove this from the agenda so it doesn't?
Yeah, I mean, that can be something either, able to keep it on, or you can have motion to take it off the agenda since they expired. I think the planning commission, I think the leases are on the agenda from the planning commission. So they are following forward. The procedure is outlined anyway.
I'll make a motion in that pause from future agendas until something happens where we need to bring it back. Take it.
I have a motion and a second to remove Ed Zastrovny's resolution requesting that the city of Jeffersonville amend the redevelopment plan. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Julius.
I'm going to go back about 3 weeks. We have discussed insurance throughout our negotiations with fire and police, and we know that it is one of our biggest expenditures. We're spending about somewhere between, correct me if I'm wrong, Monica, $45 million a year.
That's the high side.
Yeah. And what happens is every year we keep getting increases, and when we're in the middle of contracts, the city has to observe those. And it's part of the contract negotiation. There's absolutely nothing underhanded or anything wrong. There was a few of us that decided, since that was such a big expenditure, to look at bringing in an outside firm to consult with and have them look at our policy. And being partially self-insured, we had a meeting with a company by the name of Brown & Brown and Jason Rowledge. Is that how, did I start?
You did, yes, sir.
Gosh, I got it right. And Kim, and then we had a few members of police and the fire union in there to discuss what aspects of the contract we could look at
On the other, Jason felt like he could analyze our policies and our program, and whether he felt like he could bring us some savings. What we would like to do is entertain the idea. We've asked Jason to come and Kim. Kim sat in on the meeting as well. I'm sorry, Kim, I didn't mention that. What we asked Jason to do was come present us with a package. I know I've spoken with a few of you over the last week or so, and I sent an email out concerning this. So I think it deserves some dialogue and some conversation. I do think we should ask maybe the sewer department to pay maybe 10% or whatever the employee makeup would be to look at consulting. But I asked Kim and Jason to come, so if we have any questions, we need to ask them. But this is a big deal, and I think it's an avenue that we can possibly save a lot of money. The contract that we're looking at is roughly $30,000. One really good thing is, since we're in the process of negotiations, Jason had said he could do this pretty quick once we give him all the information. And Kim can give us an idea of how long it will take to compile the information to give to Jason so that he can study it. But I really wanted to bring it to everybody so that we could discuss it. And it's kind of like having a good account. You feel like you can save you more than is free. So
This is probably something maybe every year or another year we ought to get somebody to come in and review this, because it does get out of hand.
well, I think we could take it out of length, personally, because your biggest stakeholders here are your public safety.
I think we should fund this from our health, monitoring health insurance, and then it would be billed back to sewage, because that's how I recover indirectly by billing per employee and that cost. This is all in terms of the cost of insuring our employees, and that would be my recommendation. Not to contradict you, but
No.
I think that would be more suitable than what.
On the back page of this, it kind of gives an outline of the different aspects. There's 4 different areas that we would look at: the general health plan, the wellness strategies, PPAC, guideline,
That's the Affordable Care Act.
the what?
The Affordable Care Act.
Where the new income in, and then the education sessions. Because if we do make some changes, we're going to need to get some expert advice coming in.
My primary recommendation, first talking with Dennis and Ed initially, and Nathan probably over the last 3 years, is that this is pretty standard in the industry to have somebody impartial come in and do this. And particularly from where I sit, and I know we had a conversation about a year ago early on, Dennis, I kept saying, we got to get on top of this healthcare renewal. It's going to happen real quick, and before we knew it, it was August, September, you couldn't make changes, and I think the timing is probably perfect now, given the fact that we're in the middle of union negotiations. We've got the Affordable Care Act pending looming that's going to have some significant changes, potential big impacts down the road for particularly 2014 through 2018. I'm not an expert. If I could spend full-time my efforts on trying to wrap my head around the insurance industry and the Affordable Care Act and the changes, I would do that. But we currently have 977 members on our health plan. I think everyone would agree that I think the most important thing right now is to look at sustaining that. I know that a lot of people don't want to give up what we have. We have a very rich plan, and I think that there are a lot of ways that we can tweak the plan. I'm not an expert. I trust Humana. However, Humana at the end of the day has their best interest in mind, and I think
We did let, correct me if I'm wrong, but we did let Joe
Olson, I've met with Cindy Owen. I'm approaching this from transparency, which is why I wanted the union representatives to come in and meet with Jason to make sure they had buy-in with the comfort level with who they're working with. And if you want to go ahead and turn up to first.
Real quick, I just want to know, in layman's terms, what can we expect from when we get this information back, what can we expect? Are you going to drill down into our plan saying you can realize some savings here, or here are some other options besides the plan you have? You're going to drill down the HSAs and all of those different things, raising deductibles and how the plan may be.
In particular is tied into the HSA, because my philosophy, and I feel very strongly about it, and not that the HSA is a bad way to go, I don't totally not embrace it, but I don't know that when we go from the plan that we have now that is so rich and there's no skin in the game for our members. I mean, the most you typically pay is $20, short of having, skilled nursing or MRI or CAT scan. Everything's paid at 100%. No, as a member, as a consumer of our health plan, no one really has to be engaged and be a good consumer, whereas if we switched in full gear and went to a high deductible plan, there's going to be a real long road to educating our members. I mean, that's a complete shift in how you manage your health care.
Okay, and to your point, when you say educating our members of our health care plan, once we get this study back, what I'm going to call it, and we see some changes in there, if there's any big changes that really are going to cause some heartache, who's going to lead the communication
Dennis and
with
I had that
us?
conversation, and we felt pretty strong when we had the last meeting that there needs to be, obviously, administration, I guess which would be myself and Monica, Jason with his neutral, fresh set of eyes perspective, council representation and union representation, and someone just probably from the general employee pool.
The other thing to take note of, and excuse me, but Jason is not going to be in here trying to sell us a policy. Right. And, he really doesn't have an agenda where he's trying to sell us something. So that's why I think, as Kim said, it's going to be an unbiased opinion that we can sort through with members that are covered and the council.
If I'm an industry expert, I'm not an industry expert. I'm very much dabbling a little bit of this and that with HR. I mean, I would like for Jason to just, if you don't mind, to let him have a few minutes.
Kind of cordial enough.
Just push you out of the way. If I could say, I know it's been a while ago, but we looked at a number of options a number of years ago, like on-site clinics and various wellness plans. And I think I strongly support us moving forward with this because we have a professional third-party consultant who's independent, who can talk to fire and police, talk to our employees without bias. And I think it's time for us to relook at on-site clinics, health savings accounts, and how the effects of the Obamacare and all that the health plan is. And I can vouch for his firm as well. Brown Brown is a large, professional, well-known firm. I'm on the PNC side of the business, but I recognize their expertise and size and being able to deal with changes in the industry and deal with health insurance. So.
Well, the only reason I brought that up, Kim, my second point was the education portion of it. I don't doubt for a second that you'll come in and find some things that we can change that will save us money. I don't doubt that. I think the problem comes into is implementation and making those that fall under this umbrella see that these changes are not going to be that drastic, or maybe they are that drastic. But I think it's one thing to get the information, it's another thing to be able to disseminate that to people and make them understand it in a way that's I can deal with it. I'm okay with those changes. That's why I asked who's going to lead the conversation once we see that some of these changes need to be implemented. So do you think it's going to be a group of people that's going to lead those changes, correct?
I believe it'll be a group of making recommendations. My understanding is that the city council ultimately makes that decision with funding, and I guess Board of Public Works make the decision on the health plan. I guess that's where I get a little sideways with not knowing.
In the past, what's happened is fire and police contract has dictated the NFS for the city. So it's funded by the council approving the money, but the contract is the four of us that are on the negotiating committee, I think, have stressed to both unions that there's going to be some changes. We have got, and I think they've bought into that.
And there's going to have to be some tough decisions made.
There will, but I really think,
and to sustain what we have, or even come close to sustaining it, and Jason will talk a little bit about the implications of the healthcare reform down the road with the Cadillac plan and the taxing. There are some additional fees that we have already encumbered that police and fire and regular members, maybe you guys don't even know about. You got the reinsurance fees that were effective this year. We've already written a check for $59,000 to Humana as part of the reinsurance fee. You've got the comparative and effectiveness fee, that's $1 per member this year, $2 next year. That's not per employee, that's per participant. You know, you get fees on top of fees on top of fees, and then at the rate we're going, with what we're paying now for our health insurance, we're going to be going down the path of the Cadillac plan, which
40% tax.
to the employer.
40% tax. That's correct.
I don't think you need to sell us anymore. I mean,
To be honest, just to let him kind of speak a little bit since we did make it easy.
since you've taken this thunder.
That's all right. Kim's doing a great job. My background, I've been an employee benefit consultant for the past 6 years, been an agent for 13 years. Brown & Brown is the firm I've been working with for the past about 6 years as well. So we're based out of Daytona Beach, Florida. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, where my office is. We're the 6th largest in the United States. So part of what we bring to the table is not only my expertise in this area, but our agents across the country. And I can pick up the phone, I can get data. Part of my research and looking at your city is other cities of similar size and scope around the country. What are they doing from a plan design standpoint? What are the costs? What are their strategies we're looking at there? So it's a collaborative effort. The timeline I'm looking at is for Kim to give me the information that she's going to need to give me, which will be pretty cumbersome, but, you know, we'll work with that. And Monica, too, yeah, put her head down over there. But think about it, you know.
We're going to need a few more jobs.
But, you know, it's important for me. I got to look not only at current data, but historic data to give me an idea of what's happened in the past. It's important so I can dictate the future, what to recommend. But I'm anticipating about a month worth of time and effort to get this to the point where I'm providing results to you guys for consideration for changes. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. It's more of, let me look from the big picture in. Here are some thoughts I have of some things you should do, and let you all, the council and the union, decide on how to do that. And once those decisions are made, come in and educate. You know, I look at a strategy, Kim kind of alluded to that, as far as leadership needs to buy into, you know, understand what is being proposed and what the decisions are. Let me educate the unions, representatives, as well as leadership to go down to the everybody else in the organization so they understand in layman's terms. You know, when I hear to try to use, you know, healthcare related terminology, just, you know, layman's terms, like here's how things are changing, here's why. And when I met with the union, one of the things I want to do is understand what are their concerns. That was my main objective, because I want to get everybody's concerns on the table so I can evaluate those and look at those considerations when I come back with recommendations.
Kim, how long will it take to get Jason what he needs?
She doesn't know. I would say a couple of weeks. I'd say a couple of weeks and maybe about a month. So let's say about a 6-week process.
Okay. So we're looking at the middle of April, we should have some concrete information back from you that says, here's what we have.
Correct.
And then I guess that'd be good. And I guess we have to make our changes as of what?
We'd be looking at July at the latest, or
To start our open enrollment?
No, to start making some design changes, if they're going to be changing
I see what
plan
you're saying.
design, to communicate that with Humana, and Humana to go in and be able to quote the renewal for 2014. Plus, everything's kind of backed up with the healthcare reform too. We have to give a 30-day notice now for open enrollment.
Some plan descriptions, yeah.
Some are plan descriptions ahead of that. And there's none of this right in the last minute where our previous agents have typically, Candy can attest to it, many December 18th and 25th open enrollment meetings.
I guess this is to Dennis and you. Once we get this information back, is there any way that we can put a timeline together that says, here are the milestones that we have to reach by a certain date to get any of these changes that we want to implement by January 1st? I mean, I think that's important for us to at least have those milestones that we set for ourselves. I mean, it's going to be ridiculous to do this if we're here in December and not made any decisions. And I think that's where you two and the committee, if you will, push those timelines together that are reasonable.
And some will be more than just looking at 2014. Some will be further on. For example, wellness is one of the areas on the proposal that I want to work on. Well, you don't really have a wellness initiative at the present time, you know, that I see at this point. I have very little information, but once I dig into it, that's a multi-step process. I don't expect someone to implement a program that's 3 years down the road where other groups have. You know, we got to look at baby steps, essentially. Let's get people in a situation where they're at least getting the information about where they stand today is one of our main objectives. Then look at some other activities down the road in future years to look at actually results-based information.
I have a question, Kim. He's the mayor. We can appropriate money. He's willing to sign a contract.
he's on board. Great. I make a motion to approve. What is the resolution? Contract. I make a motion to support the mayor to fund this.
$34. That's what
For $30,000.
We're not a contract.
Right. We're funding it. Yeah. That's my motion.
Appropriation of the funding, not the contract.
Second.
One thing I do want to mention is because Ed was in that initial meeting, and Ed was really looking at the on-site health clinic. But when we got the first proposal back, it was $35,000. And Dennis and I spoke, and he thought that was a little bit more than maybe what the council would approve. So Jason and I met and discussed, what could possibly be eliminated, and one of the things that he felt like, could maybe be something to look at, maybe 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, like you mentioned, doing ongoing, is to look at the on-site clinic and the IAC Medical Trust at a later date. Even though he pretty much felt like the IAC Medical Trust, from talking to everybody here, was probably something to put aside, but the on-site clinic was still worth looking at. But in the whole hierarchy of all the things, we felt like that was the one we could probably eliminate now and get through the rest of the stuff. So I don't know if that's something you want to...
That's fine. The reason I brought the clinic is because I know we considered it, and we didn't move forward with it because we didn't have enough employees to make it work. But since that time, we have a lot more employees. Sure. And I don't know if it makes sense today, or not. I think that's fine. Take it off the table, let's move forward with this, and we can get back to it. I appreciate you mentioning that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the funding for the employee healthcare consulting services of Ronald Brown.
To improve the funding, that we need to put a dollar amount in there.
$35,000. Not to exceed $10,000.
Not to exceed $30,000.
That's resolution number 3, Connie.
That's resolution number 3. It's a resolution. It's just a motion.
Just a motion to approve that.
Of course, it's going to be subject to a contract.
Right, and we can't approve the contract, so. So all in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed? That motion
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the first thing to do.
And up again, a little over a week ago, I think it was a little over a week ago, I sent everyone an email about the animal shelter and the county agreement. And last year, Councilman Smith and myself met with Ed and Les with the county, kind of came up with a tentative agreement. We know we can't come up to sign agreements or contracts, we understand that. This year, we met with the new council, Rick and Jack, new commissioners, I'm sorry. And I think Lisa and Connie both sat in on the...
Well, was the last couple minutes.
Yeah, and Mike sat in with us. And we revisited the contract that we had last year. And eventually what we're trying to do is be good stewards with the county. We've got an issue here, well, 2 issues actually. One is we rent space from the county and have since this building has been occupied for police lockup. And we have a square footage rental contract that we are to pay the county every year. But to my knowledge, it has never been paid. Now, since 2010, I believe, the county has not paid us for the animal shelter. So originally, Councilman Smith and myself reached out to the county commissioners and said, how do we come to some resolution with this? Because we need our money, they need their money, they need us to take care of the animal shelter and so forth. So essentially, what we did, and we're not looking for a motion or anything else tonight, we are looking for some dialogue, if you will, on this agreement that the commissioners have approved, and they are going to go back and have their county council approve. Then it would come to us for our consensus that it's something that's workable, and then we move forward with it and send it to the mayor for hopefully passage and some resolution to this. We have looked at, the mayor sent out a new chart for different municipalities, Jeffersonville, the unincorporated county, Clarksville, Charleston, Sellersburg, Borden, and Utica. And
it was in the email that we sent out, and we feel like the percentage of population is a little different. Isn't that what we came up with, Mike? So, we think that there needs to be a unilateral agreement, or an interlocal agreement, I guess I would say, with all the municipalities to agree on the animal shelter and how it's to be run. Because to go to the county and just raise their fee almost double in 1 year without having a meeting, it's pretty tough for them to swallow. So,
Well, I also heard that Clarksville's they're not happy with theirs either.
Sure.
The chart that was sent out, as you call it, was a starting point to a discussion. It was never, ever proposed that the county pay that much. Ever. I want that very, very clear on the record with the paper here, that was never, I put those numbers together. We never asked the county for that much money. Nor did we ever propose that we were going to ask the county for that much money. I just wanted to make that really
Yeah, that's
clear.
fine, Tom. I think where the problem came in was when the mayor went in and did a demand, or the animals weren't going to be taken care of come, I don't know, March 4th, you know, I think they put the guard up immediately. And the last thing we want to do, which we're hearing rumblings, is that the county, Clarksville, and maybe another municipality are going to open their own animal shelter. That'd be terrible for us. So, that'd be terrible. I think that's a great idea. I do too. We're going to, well, that's fine, then that's something that we need to decide, but we're going to be footing the bill for the whole 3 hours.
No, we're not.
We're not paying, the county's not paying over $60-some thousand a year, and haven't paid it for the last 3 years. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I'd love for the county to...
I think the county wants to pay, we have 2 new commissioners who just took office in January. They are not responsible for 2010, 2011. They're all responsible for 2000. They were not on the commission then.
However, they value you. I mean, it's a county deal. I mean, well, we run it
Instead of them starting their own law, instead of them starting their own law, we just have them take over ours. And we'll pay our percentage and let them run ours.
I think that's fine.
I think we've got city employees there. No, I think it's our building in the city of Jeff.
If the county actually helped pay to get that building built, it is not a city building, it was always a county animal shelter.
I think you've got some good thoughts. I know we've got some employees and we've got probably trucks. We've got some equipment that we pay for, but instead of having 2 competing, would it be better just to let them take over ours? And whatever we owe on our employees and our truck and our overhead, we'll just budget that and we'll just pay that in towards it. I don't know, that makes sense.
My only view with that is I think this animal shelter has reached a pinnacle now that it's become a prime animal shelter in this area. I think we finally got something that we can be proud of, and Sarah Green works her tail off to make it what it is. I would hate to take it out of her hands and risk control of the city and turn it over into something that's going to be shoved aside. I don't want to go down that route. I understand the county's in financial dire straits, but it doesn't do away with the fact that we provide the service that they need to pay for, and this creating of a board to kind of overlook what's done in the animal shelter, to me, is even more stretching. I mean, that's like, you know, we're going on this contract that we email to. It says that they are willing to pay $70,000 for 2010 through 2011, and that's taking out what we owe them for the lockup that we haven't paid, and then they're willing, which is about, I think it was $11,000 or $12,000 a year, and they're going to pay take that out of the 60-something thousand and pay $50,000 for 2013 until we can come up with an interlocal agreement. And that kind of makes sense. Well, I agree. You can't squeeze blood out of a turnip, and I know they don't have a lot of money. I agree with that. But also on that same email, the total that they are, I guess, supposed to pay is $198,000, and they're agreeing to pay $70,000, correct?
the letter that the mayor or the administration sent to the county. Exactly. However, he didn't take out anything that we owe them. Okay, we owe them. So do we owe them $128,000 in rental storage fees?
No.
Because that's the difference. We got the 198 and 70 that they're good, but you have to add the 50 into that. So you're up to 120. Now you're getting a little closer. Well, I mean, when I look at this, it says $70,000 for 2010, 11, and 12. They're going to pay just $70,000 for those 3 years. And for those 3 years, they owe $198,000, according to this. So that's a difference of $198,000. And then, in 2013, they're going to pay $50,000 instead of the $66,000 that was supposed to be paid. So,
Well, actually, there's no contract. So the contract ended in 1999.
and the mayor letter from the mayor didn't have anything that we had done. It doesn't take that into consideration. And I couldn't agree with you more. Let's pay them what we owe them, they pay us what they owe us. I mean, it's just as simple. I owe my bill, I pay a light bill. I don't pay them half of what I should pay them, and then tell them, well, since I'm going to pay you half, I want to give them this commission that kind of oversees how you spend my money on paying you. I just think, well, we offer a service, if they want to pay for it, here's the cost. If you don't, well, here's the question, I guess, that comes out of your conversation, which I really like having this conversation. I think it's really overdue. If we say, since there is no agreement, binding the county right now, the other municipalities have paid the amount based on the old contract. They've always paid it. So, are we willing to go to the county and say, no, we can't do this without the mayor, based on $66,150 a year for the years you're doing it, you pay that, and then we will pay you what we owe you for the county outfit. I mean, I can't speak for the mayor. I think that's the right thing to do. I can't speak for the mayor. I mean, that to me is, if we owe it, we owe it. It's just, it's really quite simple.
Vicki, do we owe the copy? Has anybody looked at this? You say we owe for a lockup? You think it's like that? If you have a copy, did they not ever submit a bill to us? Why have we not paid them?
It actually started and was signed under the Ways Administration.
And the county just submits a bill?
So I agree with you, Dan. All I'm saying is, I think where the wires got crossed was this year, in 13, they were up at 100 I don't know what it was, 18,000. The projections are astronomical of how much other municipalities are going to owe, including the county. I think there needs to be some feasible budget that we all work underneath. I mean, they have to own a portion of that budget. I don't just...
And I think they want to do that. The problem is, we know where the figures came from, and they thought that they had to pay the $115.
That was...
Just saying that's what they thought.
That was never the communication. That list was made in 2012. Greg Pfeiffer had requested some information about the animal shelter and about a potential new interlocal agreement. When we went back and looked at the old interlocal agreement, which was drafted in 1990, I think, nobody knew how the numbers were put together. In other words, nobody was around that could give us any information about this is how we came up with what the county share was and what the city's share was and what Clarksville's was. And so what I did is I took the 2010 census, made it per capita based on the proposed budget at the time, and I said, Greg, if we were going to start a conversation today, here's where we would start. This is the kind of bargain that you're getting. We know it's not going to be 115. In fact, that was never even sent to Clarksville or communicated with them. This was strictly between myself and the county attorney at the time to open a dialogue about, really, frankly, what kind of bargain the county was getting at $66,150 a year.
Well, part of that issue might be that it might have been communicated to the two new commissioners at that time.
Well, in this,
it was communicated directly to the new county attorney. That was never a proposal.
Well, in this letter that we got from the commissioners, and we hear this more than we know, there's been a complete breakdown in communications between the mayor and the board of commissioners. So, I mean, what I'm saying, Tom, is I would imagine that the county has taken this to other municipalities. If they have, they've misrepresented it.
Tom, since there seems clearly to be some sort of misunderstanding here, so can we start by having, since this is the administration's issue, Tom, can you contact the commissioner's attorney and try to get to the bottom of this to see what exactly, I mean, if they thought this was...
He sat in my office in a chair directly across from my desk when I explained what that list was about 2 weeks ago. Was this before or after the demand? After. Within a day or so after. After. Yeah, because a copy of the letter shows that if the county doesn't pay their services by March 4th, that will no longer then offer the services to the county. I guess the other thing, too, to consider, and as far as the dollars, I have a personal opinion, but they don't have a position here from the administration, but just to clarify, too, if you take the evidence storage area that we have a signed agreement on, I think everybody understands that. If you go from the very beginning of when we owe, and there was a 36-month grace period that was rent-free, so if you go from the time that the rent started through the end of the current year, 2013, the city would owe them about $50,000.
I think it's even less than that. I think when it's 2011 is 11,150, 2012 is 11,300, and 2013 is 11,400. And there's $35,000.
And there's 4 months, I think, that tagged on to the end of one of those years. If you read through it, I had my calculation. I was doing some other things. I didn't see this on the agenda. I got my notes with me, but it's about $45,000, I think, somewhere in that vicinity. And that would be from the beginning through the end of this year.
All I think we were trying to do, in all honesty,
I understand where you're
get this off the table. Gosh, I commend everybody who stepped into that mess trying to clean it up. I just can't understand why 2 issues have been so convoluted and mixed together. We owe for rental space, they owe for an animal shelter. I don't think it needs to be any more difficult than that.
The thing is, now that we have to do is, it has to be, a new interlocal agreement among everybody has to be written up for the use of the animal shelter.
What I guess my question tonight is, in 2013, this year, we're already 2 months into it, would this council support the county paying 66, whatever it is, 150? I mean, could we send that message to the mayor and say, hey, we support this, let's get done with it. What happens after that? You negotiate out for the 2013 services. That is what the county will pay us this year. Right. And then the rest of the municipalities too. From 13 on, they negotiate an interlocal agreement and work it out. But what I'm saying is, if we owe the county $40,000 or whatever it is, then we take that, we're recommending that we take that off, what they owe us. There's a simple calculation here to do that. Sure. And my question is, would this board support, council support taking 66,150 for 2013? It's that simple. Mark, do you know what the budget is, the total budget for the animal shelter?
We should have to take off our animal control officers.
Yeah, I honestly, I can't.
So do you want to just get a vote of consensus?
Yeah, that's all I'm asking. Would we support?
Can you just take a roll call vote of consensus and move on?
Sure will.
Thank you.
Councilperson Smith.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. What are the incentives?
Is that the function of this council to consent to what I don't understand what we're doing.
Repeat
What Dennis said, we know it's $60-some thousand, and we do owe some back pay for the storage, which there is a contract to basically take the county, absorb their money, and we pay our owed money for the lockup, and then whatever the difference is what it is, because we don't have the exact number.
Based on, and we're using 13, it's 66, 150 a year. And we know it's not bad, we understand.
And 11,014.
Monica, can we look?
We don't have that rent appropriated, so we there to figure out where we're going to pay for that.
Well, from what I understand from what Dennis is saying, you just want consensus to go back to the county commissioners and saying, we will accept from you $66,000 for 2013 for the animal shelter. Regardless of the rent issue, you're just asking that figure, we can take back.
Well, you're going actually from 2010, 11, 12, and 13, 66, 150. Minus, and they're going to write us a check for that, and we're going to write them a check for the difference.
So they both write the gross amount of the check.
Yes, exactly.
So we're going to go
No, that's fine. That's all I'm saying. And it clears it up.
So in your mind, Tom, I think what you said was an average of about $15,000 a year we have. So we could see us, the city, writing a check for $60,000 to the county for rental space, ballpark figure, and we could see $70,000, rounded up to about $280,000 check to the city for animal shelter services.
$264,600. That's average for all year. And if we do this, all we're doing is getting a consensus. If we do that, at least we know everything's paid up for 13.
We're also
And hopefully by 14, we've got an agreement. Hopefully by 14, we have an interlocal agreement. If not, then, but at least we're trying to get these two issues off the table.
And the reason these two issues came together was because we requested the money for the animal shelter. And the commissioners said, wait, I think you owe us back rent. Why should we pay the full amount if you guys owe us some money? And then it came, even though it never sent a bill to us, somebody was aware that it was made aware that we did owe them money for rent. So that's how the two came together. They're not going to make a payment to us unless we fulfill our obligation to them.
It's kind of silly, but that's what it is. Anyway, the consensus is that.
Where did you start?
I don't know. Consensus is whatever. We'll figure it out.
Recommendation.
Okay, recommendation.
If any issue is resolved regarding this, it has to be reduced to an interlocal agreement anyway, which the council has to approve an interlocal agreement in conjunction with the executive. So, I mean, it is something that I'm not asking the authority to make such a recommendation. I think we do, because this would be part of an interlocal agreement that we have to approve anyway. At this point in time, we can't unilaterally enter into any agreement because the mayor has to be on board, so that's why I'm saying that we should call it recommendation at this time.
Take a roll call for the recommendation. I'm taking a roll call for, one question. Mr. Lewis, would you mind kind of emailing me tomorrow, if you don't mind, kind of what the recommendation is? Because it's obvious.
I can do it.
I'm
That's unclear.
Yeah, just so we're clear before we move ahead, just so we're clear, we're going to pay 2010, 11, 12, 13, what we owe in storage.
Can I clarify that quickly? Because there is 4 months somewhere, I think, in 2009.
Tom, can you get me that number? That part of it?
Yes, absolutely.
That'd be great. If you would get me that, if I've got the rates
If
here.
we could just pay, if we could just have it say, in terms of the rental of the evidence storage center, the amount that we owe from the time that we started to owe through the calendar year of 2013, I would be more than happy to, if they would send us a claim for that, I'd be happy to process it.
And in return for that, the county, we are asking that the county pay us the $66,150 for 2010, 11, 12, 13.
Exactly. Is that per year or?
Per year. They haven't paid since 2010.
Correct.
According to my numbers.
So the full amount?
Yes.
Okay.
We pay them, they pay us. That's what I was going to say in the state board of council. It's pretty simple.
It really is. It's pretty much what we asked.
Well, maybe this will be a letter like 6.
And then 14, hopefully, whatever that is. That's exactly right.
Hard question.
Okay, let's try this again. Councilperson Smith.
Yes.
Councilperson Sestaki.
Yes.
Councilperson Gill. Yes. Councilperson Glover.
Yes, ma'am.
Council President Sellers. Yes. Councilperson Julius.
Yes.
Councilperson Owen.
Yes.
Councilperson Selma.
Yes.
Everybody says yes to the recommendation.
Great.
Okay. Next on the agenda, Mr. Allen.
Before you in your packet is a resolution that I've drafted, kind of outlining a change in the way we process capital expenditure purchases. Last year, because we didn't know what circuit breakers were going to be, we passed a resolution that said everything over $5,000 had to come to us for approval. This does the same thing for purchases in excess of $5,000, but it also puts in an extra condition of any expenditure in excess of $10,000 must be approved, and the way this is written, in the form of city ordinance, of which rules and procedures would apply. The intent here was to slow down the process of which you're approving appropriations for money or you're approving capital purchases for whatever was to come our way. There's been a little bit of discussion. Should we say that it needs to be in the form of an ordinance? I think that's something I would defer to Mr. Lewis on, because technically I'm not sure if that's correct or not. But as I said, the intent here is to slow down the process of which we're spending money. If somebody comes and asks us for $100,000 for this, we're not just going to have one vote and that's it, you've got your money. It's going to be, can we have whoever's the department head is here asking for $100,000, asks us, we say yes once, they come back the next council meeting, when we have time to mull it over amongst ourselves, they ask us again, they get the final approval, and that's, we go along our merry way. The reason I said in the form of an ordinance which rules and procedures would apply is because an ordinance can be passed, on all three readings in an emergency situation. Obviously, if there's an emergency and we need money appropriated or approved right away for something, then we want to be able to do that. I didn't get a lot of feedback from Mr. Matliff happened, so I'd like to...
Well, I like where you're going with this. I don't like the idea of an ordinance. I don't think this really fits in the framework. Monica wanted to speak.
I read your proposal, and I think that's the intent, but I think that it would be very confusing because if you are aware, there is an ordinance that passed in 2006 that established the capitalization policy, and your definitions of capital expenditures and capital outlays would include not only capital equipment, but also land, projects involved, your design costs, everything involved in the project. You're going to do an ordinance for each and every one of those expenditures. You're going to bog down your process tremendously, and I don't think that is the control that you've already approved by passing the budget. In the budget, it states a list of capital equipment. It does not clarify projects, per se, in terms of other description. So you've already approved the funding, and by virtue of that, you've essentially approved those expenditures. What has accomplished with this original, and I'll listen further, is that you're asking that they come and get approval of council before they make that, before you would approve the claim. And the last final step is the approval of the claim. And I think that accomplishes what you want to do, and I think by doing this ordinance, you are adding a horribly heavy layer of legislation, something that is not a legislative matter. It's an administrative matter. And I think it should be guided and governed by internal policies and procedures from an administrative point of view and not from council. I think by you passing the budget and funding it, and then also continuing this review, you to accomplish that, your oversight of that. Those are my comments.
And I think that we will have a little bit of a difference in opinion when it comes to that, because when we approve a budget, we approve a highly inflated budget that includes items that are intended to make sure that we reach our maximum levy. When we come back
in March or April and we have to make cuts, the council doesn't sit up here and make the cuts. We ask our department heads to do that. And I think that is not so much the oversight that I'm looking for, to say that we approve the budget and then, so that therefore we give the consent to fund whatever's in that budget. And that's, honestly, that's not a practice that I agree with when we inflate the budget like that. But that's how it's been done in the past.
Most of our capital, I mean, and this is just a comment, I would say the majority of our dollars, departments and expenditures, are funded from non-general fund, non-tax levies. They are from, those are where we spend most of our dollars on our capital expenditures. And so the few items that are within our profit and within each department are even a fall below this $10,000 limit. There are exceptions. I don't know a minute, and I don't want to indicate that that's the case, but I think if you looked at our overall budget, you would see that most of our capital are all coming out of edit and bullet, which will not be impacted by the circuit breakers. We shifted because of the circuit breakers.
If we get a huge reduction in our general budget, though, we may have to tap into that budget and lower money to fund running the city.
It's an argument.
We could come to that point eventually. That isn't the case this year, or next year, or the year after. That's a possibility. I do concede some of the points that you make on every capital expenditure and every capital outlay. And that 2006 ordinance is not something that I looked at beforehand. So as I said, I think maybe we need to really examine how we want to get to where we want to go. But I still think that we need to have some sort of internal policy, which state statute allows us to set, as far as slowing down the process of making these extra purchases. I think we spend way too much money just on a whim coming to a council meeting.
In fact, I can say something. You said extra purchases, and you said on a whim. We can't do an extra purchase or something on a whim that's not in the budget. If it's in the budget, it only takes one vote to go ahead and say, yeah, it's an expensive capital improvement, go ahead and buy that car. Right. But if it's not in the budget, we have to advertise, and then we have to appropriate. There are steps involved. So anything extra does require additional steps. We can't do it all at once.
So we have a ton of things that are in the budget right now that will not be in the budget in July, because we have circuit breakers that will kick in and cut those things out then. But until then, we've got a budget that has a million different things in it that we may not be able to afford in July after we have these circuit breakers. So we need to slow down and say, hey, look, wait a minute.
I think I really didn't see where you're going, but I think I do now. And I think one thing that over the years, and we've talked to Monica about this, when we put our budget together and we put the capital expenditures in there, it's in there as a padding, if you will, because of whether it's circuit breakers. But we've told Monica, I don't know how many times, and she relayed to the department heads, I don't know how many times, that a lot of these things are there. It's just like, for an example, when Bobby came to us, he needed 4 lifts.
Yes.
Okay, 2 of them was questionable, but 2 of them was not, but he put in there all 4. Well, because of his cuts, and we don't know what that'll be, we only approved 2 lifts. Because when we get our circuit breakers, we bought 4 lifts, then we might have been in trouble.
Sure.
But we only approved the 2 lifts, and that gives him the thing. And I think Monica has expressed, because I know I've talked to her, many of us have talked to her, even when Ron Green was here, that the budget that the department receives in January of that year is not their budget.
Right. And we understand that, and we convey that to our department heads. But I'm looking for stuff that make sure that we're taking the time to examine to make sure, what am I going to say? We're not putting it on the department heads to say, you do managing. It's giving us extra time to make sure that everybody's doing what they need to do to make sure we're going to have that money. in the future.
Well, and I think, I know in the last, it used to be worse, but in the last couple of years, several years, I think Monica's hit them pretty hard that,
I'm sure.
this is not your budget. It's a temporary budget. Operate actually as last year, your previous budget,
Right.
excluding your expenditures, because until we get our circuit breakers or whatever we end up with. And I think most of the department heads have finally, and Monica, you can speak up, have realized unless it's something they have to have, they don't go out and start buying 4 lifts and all this stuff. They don't, that's why they come to us.
And we have another layer of $5,000. You know, another,
They've been, I think I hope that we've changed that a little bit.
Yeah, well, and I think everybody has been coming to this year seeing what the needs are, why they have in their budget, and they address it on a case by case individual. I mean, I'll have to admit, I was not really hot about the resolution that preceded this one. But it's also, I think, informed the council for fully of what the capital purposes being made and what the reasons are behind it. So it has had some value in it, but I think the way this is currently proposed is too broad.
I agree.
And
It needs revision.
if you want, but I think an ordinance or resolution is not.
I had commented to Matt when I read it, and I thought I understood what he was trying to do was kind of slow some things down and make sure that we didn't hear just for the first time at the podium and felt pressure to vote for it. And I would suggest us consider having a standard template or form that anybody that, any department that's wanting to purchase capital expenditures, that they have to fill it out, tell us what it is, what the quote was, and then give a reason or the need, and then we'll get that in our packet before our meeting, so we have half a week at least to read over it, to contact them and ask questions or ask each other, and be prepared at least a few days ahead of time. That gives a little bit of time to vote on it.
You mean prior, obviously that would be prior to our circuit breakers and stuff, because once they have the circuit breakers, and Monica and the department heads go through the process,
Right.
once that's done, it's our budget.
Can I make one comment, please? You know, and I know I'm not on the council, but as the clerk, Nathan's suggestion is very helpful. For instance, when we may put in the minutes, we do put in the minutes, like tonight, about the fire trucks and about the police cars. Now, if somebody comes up and asks us, or even one of you all, we'll have to peruse maybe 2 years down the road, I probably won't be here, but 2 years down the road of what you all had looked for. If we had something that they submit to us,
A statement by its form.
it would be in there, so if somebody calls, or if you all wanted to know, say, what did we buy 6 months ago? We've got something that is a written document that we can pull right up to show it instead of having to peruse through all these minutes. And I would like for you all to consider something like that when a department head is coming up for a question or asking for your all support, even though it's in their budget, or even though it's appropriate, they're coming for the approval, so we can have something for the clerk's office that will also be public record.
And honestly, like I said, what I was trying to do with this was slow the process down to have approval over 2 minutes or over 2 meetings. It doesn't sound like that is the popular way to go. I know that there definitely would have to be revisions on what type of expenses we're talking about. If going to a standardized form that a department head is going to fill out before they come and request their appropriation and request their approval the Thursday before when packets go out. Well, that's not exactly what I was looking for, but that may be the better direction to go. And if we can take this off the agenda and revise it and come up with a form and reintroduce this later, then I'll be willing to do that.
And I think to your point, a lot of times we find out what a department head wants to work about. They'll ask Mike, and Michael will say, he'll talk to Ed, and it kind of spreads on down the line. But if we have one form
that everybody can look at that says, Department Head X is looking for this in replacement of this, here's their 3 quotes, and here's who they're wanting to purchase it from, I think it makes a lot of sense. I really do. I mean, that to me makes sense.
In conjunction with all these travel, the credit cards, the trash, I've been looking at all our procedures, policies that we have. I mean, it's trying to get them all uniform into one time, the department has something to resource to and say, oh, I want to do this, what do I need to do, the steps I need to do. And so I've been trying to get that compiled together to go kind of like handle in conjunction with like the salary and wage administration policy and our personnel manual and those things to give a more uniform approach so everybody, this would dovetail very nicely into that whole process. You give me a little bit of time to work that out and meet your needs in terms of what steps need to be followed. I think we could get something that's going to be beneficial to both the department and the council.
Sure, and if that's something that you and Kim can get together on and kind of look over, I'd be happy to help with that if I can. So I guess with that, this would die without a motion unless somebody's going to make one.
All right, thank you. Comment, Pat Bell? Miles Norton up here. I have a question tonight that involves the Fire Merit Board. And Lynn Ackerman is our president. He got a note last Thursday or Friday from Monica. It says, you may not be aware, but the council has passed the salary ordinance for 2013, which matched the Fire Merit Commission stipend with the Police Merit Commission. And the annual amount for serving on this board is $1,200. I have attached the ordinance for your reference. Well, I don't know if you know or not, but I'm pretty sure you do, that the Fire Merit was getting $100 per meeting. And during the testing and the promotions, we were putting in about 30, sometimes 40 hours in a month. Not separate meetings, but quite a bit. And the gentleman just asked me to convey to you, is this a done deal? Or since no one came to us and said this is what we're looking at doing, we would have liked to put a report together and show you what our goals are and what we've been doing. So I don't know what to go back and tell them, because I put here earlier tonight that this was done last year. So anybody got a suggestion?
I'll know on that. When we initiated the police and fire boards, they went hand in hand on the dollar amount. And how the fire department, maybe a conversation I had with Monica, how the fire department got out of that, I have no idea. But for some reason, they went to meetings. Well, that's not how it was set up. It was an annual deal. If you want to be on the board, here it is. And we knew, the existing police and merit boards knew when they first started this up, there was going to be a lot of hours building it.
Sure.
And once it gets built, it's like anything else, then okay. So that was the way it was designed, and how it got out of kilter, I have no idea. I know in a conversation, I guess last year, with Monica, maybe it was brought up, and I said, that's not the intent, that's not the way it was supposed to be. That's why we put it back to where it was.
I can appreciate, actually where y'all coming from, but, it's kind of like getting, the rug pulled out. We didn't know even it was coming up, and it would have been nice, because we do put a lot of hours and effort. It would have been nice to have gotten noticed.
Let me back up, too. I got a call from the attorney, it was Bobby Bradoff, and was he police or fire attorney at that time? Police. And he's the one that I don't know if he called everybody, but he called me, and we're going back at least last year, and brought it to my attention that there was some difference in them, and there was not supposed to be. That's what started it. So when we discussed budgets and putting together, I think it was my suggestion to revert the fire back to police and to make a match. And it's an annual, it's $1,200 a year regardless if you have one meeting or, That's the way it was built. And somehow I got out of kilter, and I don't know how, but that's where we accepted it.
Okay. Well, they just asked me to come and talk to you about it and find out what the issue was.
Well, it wasn't an issue, it was just somehow that, I mean, it wasn't anything negative, it just got out of kilter, and don't know why, and don't know how, and we had to cut it. It wasn't anything negative, it just cut it. But I would apologize for the lack of communication. I mean, I think you bring up a good point that when we do something or change something, we need to understand who it's affecting and make sure we follow through and give them a heads up rather than reading it in paper or on your check. You know, it's less than what you thought it was or whatever. So,
Well, you know, they would get a consideration because there's Saturdays, we have to give a whole Saturday up for testing. Days in the week, we give up 8 hours a day, means that we have to not go to work to do the promotions and the testing. So, you know, it's a kind of encumbering for all of that. But I told him I would show up and find out what the issue was, and I appreciate it. But if you all would, kind of keep in touch with us and let us know if there's anything we need to know in the future. Thanks.
I'm not afraid of that being someone who's like the hiring of police and fire. I can appreciate where she's coming from because coming in my office, we're the ones that schedule the applicants and the testing and interviews. And I don't know how much time and effort we put in on our end, but I know how many applicants are interviewing. Please just interview the American Commission potential hire. So maybe what we would do for future considerations, maybe somehow look at coming to the digital reimbursement schedule. That only happens every 2 years. We certify a list and we don't go through the hiring process for another 2 years. So the number of hours that she's referring to is only going to happen on a 2-year cycle. And they do spend considerable number of hours in that applicant in this process.
It's like a shooting contract.
Make that maybe with the first
Maybe twice a month.
something that they could.
What's that?
Thanks.
Thank you.
We're not back and forth about
Okay, council comment?
No comment.
No comment.
I would like to thank Dennis on your work on that contract. I know that had to be an absolute, had to be an absolute disaster to even think about getting involved with that, and I do appreciate your efforts on that. I think it's something we definitely need to move forward on, but just my thank you is go out to both of Thanks. I just had one thing, with the contract negotiations with fire and police, it seems like it's taken forever. And sometimes I think that the fire and police maybe feel like it's personal, and it's not. And every now and then we do have differences of agreements, but I want to go on record to say that I think we have an outstanding fire and police department. I admire them. I think they're very well trained. All of the instances that I've been in, they've been wonderful to work with, and I think it needs to go on record to say that. And through these negotiations, it's important to communicate compliments and pats on the back, because they do protect and serve our city, and they are very important. So just wanted to put that out there.
Councilperson Allen?
I don't know if anybody else saw it or not, but it was brought to my attention that a Cherry Hill resident was the winner of the America's Next Best Baker. Is that what it is? It's put on by the Cake Boss. It's Ashley Hope won that competition, which comes with a large amount of money, but I think she's trying to use to open her own bakery.
And I think we're going to try to get in touch with her to see how we could work to help her do that in Jeffersonville. But I haven't really been found any kind of contact information. I haven't tried very hard, but I was asked to, I talked to Sandy, and she was looking into it too for me. But I thought it was notable to, say, hey, somebody from Jeffersonville, that's awesome. That's awesome. And also, I just want to thank everybody for the conversation we just had, because I didn't get very much feedback over email, and want to be able to move forward on that kind of thing. So that's all I got. A couple things. I don't know if you've noticed, but our entrance to the city, particularly down by Clinton Spring, maybe some others, but I know there has been some attention being given to that area, and I noticed there were some inmates out cleaning it up. So I contacted the sheriff, and then Joe Wink, who I think helps run a city. I thanked them on behalf of the council and the city for helping get some of the inmates to help keep that clean, and I told them I had mentioned that that's happening, and I hope it continues to happen in Jeff. Candy, if you can show those three pictures. Today, the mayor alluded to it earlier about the new sculpture at Gaither Park. I went down there. Can you minimize the big screen? Top right. Maybe run some over here. Minimize the big. Where's the? I'll come back to that in a few. And so the other thing I want to mention, a couple other things, is tonight we voted to buy 2 pickup trucks for $40,000 apiece, basically after we voted. And I just want to make a comment why I voted against that. I think I was the only one that did. The figures that I had, it showed that the ones that we were going to replace, we're putting on 11,000 miles a year. And to me, when we only put 11,000 miles a year, now I know that's very idle sometimes, but we have a vehicle maintenance department, and my understanding is these trucks are going to, we have new fire marshals. And then the fire marshals, my understanding is they go to the fire scene really after the fact. It's not an emergency. They're not on an emergency run. And so they just drive up, they do their business, they take their pictures, they walk around. I don't have the job descriptions. But to me, when we have vehicles we're replacing vehicles with 50,000 miles, 80,000 miles, 89,000 miles. And we did one for 135, so I'm for that. But it just seems to me like when we're getting quad cab pickup trucks for a fire marshal to go to a fire scene by themselves, it just seemed like overkill. And so that's why I voted the way I did. And I didn't give a lot of explanation earlier, so I wanted to say that. Maybe you guys expect me the picture. This is called The Swing. It's at Gaither Park. If you would click through another one. That's them, Sam and Stone. We have former Mayor Galligan, Ian Soon helping, got current Mayor Moore, and then City Crew. Next picture. I think this next picture, it has John Wells in the middle. He was very active. Don Struck, who's now on our art committee, and she's a teacher at Jeff High. Chad, who has a toboggan on, he's the welding teacher for Jeff High. I know the Jeff High students, they really got into that. Those are all base malls on the end of the thing. They're painted, and it's a really neat thing. So I just want to let everybody see that's up and they drive by us. Peggy Duffy was taking the picture. Peggy was taking the picture, so she's not on. That's exactly right. So those are the folks that were pretty active in that. So I wanted to bring that tonight to show people. There's the park that's right there on 8th Street and Mayhem Lane. I think there's a red carpet liquor right over here. Yeah. Oh, down over there. I got you. So anyway, it was there. And I just want to also add in closing that I do appreciate Dennis and Mike for their work with trying to pull the county and the city helping us work together, because that's an issue that's been a thorn in everybody's side for years. And it's so simple. Let's just get over it and move on. So thank you guys. That's all I have time.
Okay. I have a couple of things. I received an email from Dawn from Pro Media, and she's wanting us to put some things in the newsletter, which is due out, like, it's got to be in this week. So I called Nathan and asked him if he could write up an article about his arts committee. I asked Ed if he could put something in about the CCSA. If there's anybody else who wants to put in anything, she said we could have as many pages as we wanted. She also gave me the dates when they're due, so we'll know what to put in each issue, so we can make sure we get things in on time. So anyway, so I have that. Monica was asked to talk to you about the credit cards again. Sorry. Please make sure that everyone knows it's not just elected officials that have to, when they go out to eat, everyone needs to put their names down and why they're out eating, because there are several in there from different departments. I don't want to name them because I don't want to embarrass them, but anyway, they went out to eat, and I mean, obviously the person signed the card, but if he was there on the radio, a lot of food. So anyway, ate a lot of food. So we just need to make sure that gets down, and the purpose for the eating out, and I think those were in training or a convention or something, so I mean, it was obvious, but still it needs to be on the receipt. I'd appreciate it. And then I wanted to talk about, I sent everybody an email about the JNI, the Jeffersonville Neighborhood Leadership Institute. Lisa and I met with Michael McCoy. I can't say Michael McCormick. I don't know why I want to say that. Michael McCoy, and with Katie Miller and Josh Rodriguez. And he has stated that he would be willing to do the class again. He's not in the order to do it all, correct? He's not over the
Yes, we do, but they are not
program.
for them.
So if he can do it, it's a little bit cheaper, costs about $4,000 cheaper. The total cost would be $19,500. I contacted Mike to see if the UEZ would be interested. I received a couple of emails back on that saying that they would be interested in donating $5,000 towards that. And then I'm asking, not to take it on tonight or anything, but just to get some feedback if we could take $15,000 out of our special projects, because this goes right back to the taxpayers, it's taxpayers' dollars, this goes back to help our communities and to help the neighborhood. So anyway.
I would like to make some type of movement or motion on this. I know you got some members here from the JNL. If anybody would speak for a moment.
Okay.
Well, it would be nice if we do take it, put the application and do it.
Yeah, actually, I had, Marilyn's already writing an article for the Referral newsletter, so I was hoping that this would be a positive thing that I could get people to agree to it at least. So, Marilyn, do you want to speak a little bit about the Institute and what?
Well,
I'd like to put you on that spot, but...
I think that just what you showed here with Andy Ross and Jerry Holmes, he attended the first JNLI Institute. Her project was Gaither Clark and the development, and look where that's gone. Look at Terra Taylor's neighborhood. Josh Rodriguez was in the class with us, and Martin, Lady Bliss, is absolutely, a shining example in the community of what can be done there. My husband has done a wonderful job with his project, which is the Middle Road, Allison Lane, our landscaping efforts. And I think if you just look around at the various projects that have helped, I think that the way itself, the Jeffersonville Neighborhood Leadership Alliance, what we've tried to do is get together the neighborhood associations to form a leadership group to help neighborhood associations in Jeffersonville. And we're getting more interested and more joining, and I think it's something that could be developed and has been very, very successful in other communities. And it's really getting it down with the people where we need to go in the neighborhood development. So I think it's a wonderful. I've talked to Mike Smith a little bit about being a little bit more challenging on the requirements for getting into the classes. Maybe a little bit more challenging as far as having put a little more effort into it. I think that when you are a citizen and are allowed to do something like that, it's taxpayer money, and you should be responsible enough to develop a project and follow through with it. And I think there should be a little bit of pressure to do that. I've been really a little bit disappointed in the fact that some people have, were not very, did not finish their projects or kind of dropped off. And I think that a little bit in filtering out,
I don't know what people handle, but just to speak on that moment, the one thing about like Cherry Hill, they've been around for a long time, so they have lots of help. When you get new people who are coming in and trying to start, it's much more difficult to try really beginning. Like Josh has a lot of help in his area. What's the one downtown? Franklin Hill. They've all been around for a while. American has been around for a while. So it's the newest that probably are having difficulty. So anyway.
No, it's been a good program, and we have neighborhoods now in the zone. One of the newer ones was we're just getting started, but it's been a good program. So I would hope the council will support. We'll be talking to UEG to move forward on this and set it up and move forward. So.
Okay.
And real quick, they won 2 awards, National Night Out and the night we had one night, and the city of Jeffersonville at JNLA, they've been recognized by 2 awards. I was going to have one of the plaques, I didn't get it tonight to show you, but I'll get one to show you the award. That's national. So that's pretty awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So what do I need to do? Because I don't want Maryland to put something in the newsletter if we're not going to support this.
I would.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to support $15,000, and then I will have UEZ coming up, and I've had a consensus of $5,000, so
Okay.
not really voted on it yet, but it's,
I have a motion and a second to approve the $15,000 from Common Council Special Project. Thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I think that's all I have.